Something strange is happening in San Antonio as after another double-digit loss, there are questions about the team's effort and also head coach Mitch Johnson's rotations and strategy. Wemby had another good game, but he has the ball in his hands arguably too much. There is a lot we got to talk about coming up on this episode of Spurs Digest, especially the implications moving forward for why this team is seemingly not putting together a strong 48 minutes. So stick around for all of it. But before we get into the video, I want to remind you guys that 75%, 3/4 of you are still not subscribed. We're pushing towards 4,000. We have been so thankful for your guys' support. So if you would do us the honor hitting the subscribe button down below, stay up to date on all the latest Spurs news. This is your home for it, and it's completely free. Guys, let's get into this now. Look, I want you guys to just think about what happened in this game. We're not going to dive too much into the specifics of the game, but it's all about the implications moving forward. And I got some things that it's really going to be interesting to you guys, some quotes and stuff, even some things that Mitch Johnson himself has said. So stick around for all that. I want to start with the box score, and as always, feel free to pause, take a look at it. Because I think this paints a very clear picture. And the one thing that I'm looking at directly is the three-point shooting. It's like, look, the three-point shooting has been a problem for the Spurs for a long time, right? This is not what lost the Spurs the game to the Heat, but it's one of many factors that I want to get into in this video. So right now, the three-point shooting is just not what it was. Victor Wembanyama, 8 for 18 from the field, 3 for 8 from 3. I'll get into his shooting a little bit later because there are some fans coming out saying some things about him that I definitely don't agree with. But overall, the three-point shooting, Chris Paul was 50%. And other than Stephon Castle, who was 1 for 1, I guess Tre Jones was 1 for 2. Everyone else, like, even Sandro, I guess. Everyone else was not great, though. 0 for 2 from Keldon. 1 for 6 from Julian Champagnie, a guy who's supposed to be a great three-point shooter. Vassell shot 40%, but it seemed like a lot of the times the Spurs got those three-point opportunities, they just really couldn't make them when they mattered. And I got some stats here as well. The Spurs still have the 8th worst three-point percentage in the entire NBA. They're right down there at 34.4%, and that does include today's game as far as I'm aware. So this is an area that the team really needs to bolster because you notice a lot of times, especially when the defense is focused on Wemby, there's not too many guys where you feel confident that they will knock out a three-point shot. Now, again, I don't think this was the big problem today, but it's just something that jumped out at me from the box score that I wanted to talk about. But the big thing today is really Mitch Johnson. And I want to hear your guys' opinions right now. Leave a comment down below because there's something weird going on. There's something very weird going on because right now, like Mitch Johnson, I'll read this in a second. He has a lot of people questioning him and the Spurs. I'm still not on the Mitch Johnson hate train, but I can't deny that when I watch this Spurs team, there sometimes feels like there's a lack of effort. It feels like they're not playing for each other. It feels like there's not this combined overall global goal. And maybe that's me looking too far into it. But when you watch these games, it just feels like that there's not that 48 minutes straight of fight. And I don't want to call out the players for that, but this has people questioning whether that might be due to Mitch Johnson. Is it due to his play calling? Is it due to his rotations? I don't think so necessarily, but there's something I can't really explain about this. But as for Mitch Johnson, what he said for this game, he said there's some key issues. He said there are Spurs players, some people rushing shots on offense. That we know. The amount of three-point shots today that were early in the shot clock drove me insane. How many times over the past few games, really, have there been Spurs just chucking up a shot early in the shot clock? And I know Wemby does it from time to time. I'm a little more lenient with Wemby. I mean, this dude's the future of the franchise, right? 21 points, 10 boards, 3 assists, only 1 block today, but still, like, it's not really his fault. He had the second best plus minus of any starter other than Chris Paul, who is often right up there in terms of the best plus minus. But Mitch Johnson said that what happened today is that, you're rushing shots. It allows teams like Miami and teams like Memphis to rush and play the other way very fast. Get a rebound off a quick 3. You can push the pace the other way, right? How many times have you guys seen that? Maybe playing yourself or watching a Spurs game. You come down, force a quick shot, rebound goes long, other team is sprung in transition, and then all of a sudden they get a bucket. You do that 2 or 3 times in a row, you have like a 3-4 possession game on your hands. So it does get crazy, and that is very true. As you can see, Spurs reporter here on X was saying, like, look, this is not, like, this is very real for Mitch Johnson. This is exactly what we are seeing, but how do you adjust to that, right? How do you, like, as a coach, you got to look at your players and say, guys, you can't do this, and maybe he does. But it's been happening consistently now, and we've seen it hurt the Spurs multiple games in a row. These double-digit leads, they're not holding for long periods of time like they should with a good defensive team. If you're a good defensive team and you're up double digits, that lead should dwindle slowly. But the Spurs went from, up 10 to down 19? I might have those numbers wrong, but up 10 to down 19 in, a quarter's time, basically. Like, it was boom like that, and it was a 20, 30-point swing. That can't happen. And I don't want to say that this is the one key solution to this, but but the difference that Jeremy Sochan makes when he's in the lineup versus not in the lineup is also something big. The Spurs have a defensive rating of 111.8 with Jeremy Sochan playing, and they have a defensive rating of 117.8 with him not playing. I pulled this from the Spurs Reddit, which is a great spot for you guys as well if you want to keep up to date, even more up to date on a lot of the news as it comes out. But that to me is a huge difference. And without Sochan as well in that starting lineup, you do get to start Stephon Castle, which I was thrilled about. And I thought he had an okay game overall. I mean, he did have 4 turnovers. That's something he's going to have to clean up. There is no doubt about that. But 11 points, 4 rebounds. He's getting there, right? He shot 50% from the field and he made his only 3. Baby steps, right? Baby steps. I mean, I wish he had more than 1 assist. Chris Paul was taking really the primary ball handling role, though. And even Vassell has the ball in his hands a bit more. So that's fine. But I don't know. I can't shake this feeling that there's something weird going on with this team when I watch them. Like, it doesn't feel like the Spurs team that went on this crazy run in the months like, November, December, those wins that we were seeing. This doesn't feel the same. Even early January, more so, right? Like, this team is keeping up with other teams. Yeah, they beat teams like the Jazz and Blazers, but there was this effort, this intensity behind every single player that I feel like is missing. Am I looking too much into this? I want to hear your guys' thoughts, but there's something weird, and I can't quite put my finger on it. You guys might say it's Mitch Johnson. You guys might say it's Wemby forcing too many shots. Maybe it's the fact that defenses are now playing bully ball with Wemby. They're forcing him to the outside, which is something that we are seeing more and more. Victor Wembanyama playing more on the outside, taking 8 of his 18 shots from 3, though that's not necessarily anything new. But him not being able to get into the paint as much is sort of affecting the offense as a whole. But even then, like, when he is getting it in the paint, if he's not shooting it, even if he's just inside the arc and he's looking for a 3-point shooter, the Spurs haven't been consistent enough this season to really shoot the 3-ball well. 15 for 40, that's actually above their season average at 37.5%. But again, a lot of those were early in the shot clock. Not all of those were ideal threes. But there is some silver lining to this, and I want to point this out, right? We are in year 2 of Victor Wembanyama. The Spurs had the first overall pick just a couple of years ago, and I think a lot of fans are holding the team to an unrealistically high standard. And I'm not saying you guys, maybe some of you do, and maybe for good reason, but when you have a guy like Wemby, yes, it would be great if we made this big playoff push right now, as the Spurs now currently sit 2 games out of the play-in and many more from the playoffs. Well, not many more, actually 2.5 away from the playoffs. It's actually still close. Like, that's not crazy. 2.5 games out of the playoffs is kind of really good at this point of the season. But yet, like, I don't know, the expectation that this team should be a contender right away. This team is, I'm seeing comments saying this team is nowhere near contention. It's nowhere near a playoff lock. It takes 3 to 4 years sometimes. Yes, I know Victor Wembanyama is special. He's a generational talent. He will probably, if things go to plan, go down as one of the greatest players to ever play the sport. But that doesn't mean that the whole Spurs timeline needs to change. Look at how many young guys are in this lineup that are making this team better and better as the days go by. Vassell is still quite young. Castle is a rookie. Victor Wembanyama, second-year player who's going to get MVP votes. He's up there on the MVP ladder, though he's been falling down recently throughout these past few games. And even on the bench, like, even a guy like Keldon Johnson is not super old. He's probably at his peak right now. But you got younger guys at the end like Branham and even like Wesley, though I'm not sold on them being part of the future. Even Tre Jones is still fairly young. There's a lot of guys who are still coming up, not to mention Sochan, who is still ready to come back in this lineup, hopefully soon. I don't know. He's got a lumbar spine bruise. It went from a few days to a few weeks. A lot of question marks around that injury. But this team's still building, right? You can't just get Wemby and then all of a sudden become a contender. Like, the only way to really get a crazy jump in production is if Wemby himself turns into this godlike basketball player, which he borderline already is. He's already helped the team win a lot more games. Or you go out in free agency, because this early into a rebuild, the Spurs do have draft picks that they can trade to make this team better, like right now. But I don't think there's no rush to do that this offseason. I think there could be urgency to kind of start to build this team up, to give Wemby the pieces he needs. But rushing that has hurt a lot of teams in history. We even signed Chris Paul, and he himself has been a real contributor to this team's success right now. So overall, what I'm saying is there's no need to worry. But there are certain things right now, and I don't want to blame Mitch Johnson, because I'm not part of that crowd. I find it hard to strictly blame him, though he is no Gregg Popovich, and it did look like he got out-coached by Erik Spoelstra today, that's for sure. Spoelstra made some key rotation changes that just weren't matched by the Spurs. Kel'el Ware had a great game today. I wanted to shout out him, because look, as much as we hate losing, you got to give the opponents credit where it's due. But I don't know. Like, I'm not on the fire Mitch Johnson, step down Mitch Johnson train, but there's something going on right now. There's something going on with the team's effort, in my eyes, maybe not yours, and there's something going on with the shot selection, the three-point shooting overall. Anyway, I want to hear what you guys have to say, because I'm not sold right now on this version of the Spurs. A few straight losses, and the team looks different. That's the problem. It's not like it's the same Spurs team that I'm seeing, right? Yeah, maybe the shots aren't falling as much, which is part of it. Wemby's getting defended a little differently. Also part of it, because these teams are better that we're playing against, so they're better prepared. But there's something else underlying. Anyway, I'm going to let it go there. Leave a comment down below what you think, but that's going to do it for this episode of Spurs Digest. Am I out of line? Maybe I am. And if I am, I want you guys to call me out down below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We got Spurs content all season long. This is your home for all the latest news on your favorite team. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you in the next one.